Welcome to Exploring Anime with Friends, a JMO for Real podcast on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. I'm your host, JMO. And today's friend is my wife and co-host, Sarah. How's it going today, Sarah?
It's going very well.
Awesome. So in this episode, we will be exploring the world of Kaiju No. 8, an action sci-fi with humor laced throughout it, released in April of 2024. For the next 20 to 25 minutes, we will explore the first season of Kaiju No. 8. First, we will learn a little about the world of Kaiju No. 8. Next, we will meet our main character, Kafka, and explore his early interactions with Reno and the cleanup squad. Afterwards, we will dive into the exam and meet Division 3 and the other candidates. Finally, we will explore the battles that lead to the big reveal. And remember, if you like what you hear today, follow us on social media, linked in the show notes. All right, Sarah, let's talk a little bit about this world.
Yeah.
All right, so any initial thoughts? Obviously, this is a universe where there's monsters, where there's giant kaiju roaming around. So it's kind of like, it's not really Godzilla, but...
It's kind of Godzilla, though.
I guess so. But there's giant monsters roaming around this world that appear out of nowhere. And talk to us a little bit about it.
I mean, I don't know what there's to say. They just appear out of nowhere and go on a rampage. And there's a defense force, luckily, that tries to handle that.
And it's not like Attack on Titan. It's not like a world that has completely fallen apart. But it's kind of like a world like Solo Leveling, where the dungeon gates appear out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels like it's more of an imminent threat. It does feel like the MonsterVerse. It does feel like Universal's MonsterVerse, right?
Yeah, definitely.
They've done a lot of, they're not normal people going against it either, though, because they've actually done work with the corpse of the kaiju.
Yeah.
And they turned them into weapons that they can wear to use against the kaiju. Talk to us a little about that process.
So basically, I think for the most part, it's like the skin of the kaiju being used for the armor that they have. And when you put it on, it basically, like, you kind of can, I guess, resonate, for lack of a better word, with how well the suit and you just work together. And it's like a percentage-based thing. Generally, the new guys are like at 18%. The guys that have been there a long time are like 20 and higher.
Well, it's not even 18%. To register over a 10% your first time wearing it. And by the way, this is just something that's worn by the defense force. This isn't something that there's enough for everyday
it's not normal stuff.
Citizens, yeah. And so you think that we're following someone from the defense force. No, we're going to be... They also have very elaborate cleanup crews that take the time to... We actually see the process of how they...
Great.
Right? Talk to us about it.
I mean, okay, so yeah, that's always been a thing where these giant monsters are attacking and no one really notices the after of that. But they actually have the main character, Kafka, he's part of the cleanup crew that has to, like, get rid of this ginormous creature.
Yeah, so opening episode, you see, and this is where some of the humor just comes in.
Yeah.
Like, obviously there's these gags of humor that are located all throughout. It's like little pockets of dark humor and little pockets of, like, stupid humor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's fun.
It's different things. You don't even know what to expect half the time. And our main man, Kafka, is looking out at the battlefield where the defense force had just taken out this giant kaiju, and he's just looking, and he's eating a cheeseburger while looking at all the blood.
Well, like, entrails and blood is raining down. He's just living his life.
Yeah, eating a cheeseburger, like, oh, looks like I'm going to have overtime this week.
Right?
And immediately he endeared himself on me, because we found out that Kafka, he's a working man.
He's the working man. He's Larry from Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. He's Kanami from Jujutsu Kaisen. He's not jaded yet. He's still the fun guy, but he's a hard worker, gosh darn it.
Well, you know, it's funny, because by the age of 32, you could very easily be jaded, which he is the age of 32. A lot of people who have to do that kind of work for a living, either they get very jaded very quickly, or they just basically, everything becomes funny to them. And he makes the best of it. Yeah. Oh, I'm on intestines duty. I'm gonna flip out a little, and then I'm just going to grind through these intestines and get rid of all the crap.
Yep.
Literally. Pun intended.
Literally.
On the second day that we're watching in Kaiju No. 8, he meets someone new.
So Reno he's pretty great. He is like strong golden retriever vibes. He is loyal. He's friendly. And, at first I thought that, like, he wasn't going to survive long because he's still kind of a kid. But he's doing the job and he's learning things. He's very nice. He's very friendly. He shows a lot of respect. He keeps calling Kafka sir. And that's probably part of it is probably the age gap because he's like, what, 16 or something like that?
No, they've all graduated. Yeah, he's graduated from the university, so he's probably in the
that's right.
22 or so range.
I don't know why I thought he was so young.
The reason why you're thinking 16 is because there was a character who graduated top of her class when she was 16, but it doesn't really give ages for anyone except for Kafka and his childhood friend, who we'll talk about when we're talking about more of the third division. He meets Reno, and the head of the disposal guys says, yeah, no, this guy used to dream about being part of the third division until, reality set in on him. And Reno is immediately like, why, sir? Why did you give up?
So, basically he kept failing one of the tests involved. And eventually he just aged out. He couldn't take the test anymore. He was too old.
Yeah, and that really tore him up because he had a childhood friend by the name of Mina. And she is the poster child for the Defense Corps. She is the #1 kaiju slayer, probably in Japan. Like, yeah. I'm guessing. Like, there's a chance that director Shinomiya is more powerful than her, but at the same time, he is director now at this point in time. He doesn't get out in the field.
Yeah.
She is the top person in the field. And they promised each other when a kaiju destroyed their village when they were younger that they would join the Defense Corps together and that they would always be there for each other. So he's feeling that he's failed her to an extent.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he keeps on telling himself, I'm doing my part to make this place a better place.
Yeah. So
he's lying to himself. And Reno really kind of makes him realize he's lying to himself. And then Reno gives him the big news.
They upped the age because there's not enough people anymore. So he has like one more shot to try to join the Defense Corps.
Yeah, and this comes on the tails of him and Reno encountering a kaiju together and surviving it and getting Division 3 with Mina on the scene to take it out. They both save each other's lives in that scene. And at that moment, it's the heartfelt moment where Reno's kind of like, it's none of my business, but I really feel like you look too broken up about having to give up, and maybe you should take another shot. So they're both lying in the hospital bed with each other because they suffered injuries because they were attacked by a kaiju, and something happens.
So, like, they're in the hospital together, but, like, same room, and there's, like, a curtain between them. They got a little bit of privacy, and they're just kind of chatting back and forth, and suddenly, like, Kafka just kind of, like, looks in front of him, and there's this very small, which threw me off, kaiju just, like, staring at him. Like, kind of like weird mosquito insect looking thing. And it just jumps into his mouth. And it was gross.
And he transforms into what is later that evening referred to as Kaiju No. 8. Now, he's completely in control, his mind, but his body's transformed to a kaiju and he clearly doesn't know his own strength. Reno, instead of getting freaked out and running away on him, decides to help his friend, and they're running away together, and just another one of the visual gags. It's, oh my goodness, you want to talk about this? I'm gonna laugh too much.
With the old man?
Not with the old man. With the having to use the restroom.
Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I don't remember the exact context of it, but like suddenly Kafka in this like kaiju form, which is basically like very, very, very large human being. He's like, I've got to pee, and he's like, they're running away. They're trying to get away. And Reno's
kind of like, you don't have that part. How are you gonna do it?
And it comes out his nipples, and like we lost it. Both of us were watching it together. We absolutely lost it.
The humor in this is very displaced and random out of nowhere. Maybe it's distracting for someone, but for me, it just added that much joy to watching it. It's
just so funny.
And they get to a point where another kaiju's emerging as Kafka's being hunted. That kaiju is about to eat a little girl who's looking over her mother who's pinned under a shelf. Kafka, being who he is, someone who always cares so deeply about people.
Yeah.
He shows up and he's like, I'm going to risk it. And bam!
He like sucker punches that thing to death. It was one shot and it was just done.
And just to add more humor and dark humor to it, the rain of blood is
It just starts
takes like a
raining
good
blood.
4 to 5 seconds. Covers the whole area.
And he turns around to like smile at the little girl, and he's blood covered as a kaiju. It's definitely scared her again. Thankfully, Reno was there to comfort the little girl a little better.
So they're able to get away from there, and the hunt for him ends because Division 3 shows up with Mina and her vice captain, who we're going to talk about a little more in a moment. Yeah, they're like, why? They're trying to figure out what happened because they've never seen anything like this before. And then they hear the little girl refer to the good kaiju. And at that point in time, it's kind of like, whoa, it's, Mina realizes that something's up that is very unprecedented. It goes on for 3 months of them trying to hunt and everything, and Reno and Kafka have applied to the defense course. No one's been able to find Kaiju number 8 during this time. And sure enough, Kafka and Reno both receive their admission letters.
Yay.
And they can take part in the exam. If you're already getting hooked, we recommend that you watch this for yourself on Crunchyroll, home to over 1,000 anime series and simulcast, both subbed and dubbed. The website is in the show notes. All right, just a little bit about the exam, and then we'll talk about some of the fun characters.
They're all fun characters.
The exam itself is right on the base where the 3rd Division is housed and operates out of, and it starts with a physical exam. And then afterwards, it goes into a practical exam where our new recruits are released into an area that has small living kaiju in it.
Small? I mean, I guess smaller than some of them, but I wouldn't call these guys small. They're still, like, bigger than an elephant.
All right, so the first recruit they meet right in the parking lot. Want to talk to us a little about Kikaru?
Oh my gosh, okay. So this chick comes up to Kafka, and she's basically like, move your car, it's in my spot. And Kafka's like, there's like 100 other spots. Like, it's not very full parking lot. And she's like, my lucky number is 5, and this is my spot. He's parked in spot 55. So she's basically like, fine, I'm gonna move your car for you. And literally, like, picks up his car and slams it down. So that went over so well.
And at that point in time, you find out that a quote-unquote civilian at this point in time, she already has a power suit. And then you hear that her last name, Shinomiya, and you realize that she is the director of the Defense Force's daughter. Yeah, she's a prodigy. She graduated as valedictorian from her defense college at the age of 16. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Kafka decides that he's going to partial transform under his clothes, pick up the van, and put it back in the spot where he wants it. And she's immediately impressed that he has his suit, so she knows that there's something up with him, too.
Yeah.
Others come into the parking lot. Iharu comes in on his motorcycle. Talk to us a little about Iharu.
Iharu is great. He's very loud. And, like, angry, but, like, not upset. Can I say it that way?
I'm not sure if it's angry,
anger,
but
yeah.
it's very boisterous. Get wrecked!
Yeah, get wrecked everywhere.
He's the guy who walks into a room and is like, let's go!
Yeah. Right.
But despite his larger-than-life personality, at the same time, you also see him struggle with some insecurities. Because it's said when they do their first test that a lot of them only start at around 10% or so, and he definitely starts above that. He starts in the, 15% range. But they also told them that a lot of captains tap out somewhere between 20 and 30%. And he's struggling with the fact that he feels like people are passing him by because he seems to be on 20% for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that you see the most is something that happens in a battle where him and Reno are fighting alongside, and we'll cover that a little bit later. But for right now, another one is Karagiri. So talk to us a little bit about him.
Karagiri has some good military training, which is, I think they should kind of all do that, but whatever. He's a much quieter voice. He's like the softer toned big guy.
He knows that he is where his place is. He took number 1 in the physical exam, and he only took number 3 in the class behind Kikaru and the one who will be covering after him. But as he keeps on going through, he starts to match number 2's combat power, and he keeps on reminding him, don't just keep on worrying about her, worry about me too, because
Yeah,
like
gonna catch up.
I'm not only going to take down you, but I'm going to take down her too. So it's one of those things where he brings that sturdiness to the group. And the number 2 that we're talking about is Izumo.
Azumo's pretty cool. He's got, like, we talked about the boisterous guy, we talked about the quiet guy. He's in the middle. He's not too loud, he's not too soft.
Very deliberate.
Yes.
He's a very cool customer.
Yes.
He comes from a rich family. It's funny too because when you see Iharu comes in, he comes in on a motorcycle. When you see Kaguragi come in, he's jogging in from the military base. When you see Izumo come in, he's being brought in an expensive car, and you can automatically tell that they have wealth. And it turns out that his family is the ones that turns the Kaiju parts into the uniforms for the Defense Corps. And they're all getting ready to take the exam together, and the one in charge of the final phase of the exam is Soshiro, the vice captain. And he lets them know that Mina is going to be there, and she is going to be watching everything. Talk to us a little about this third exam.
So the third exam takes place right at the academy. There's a section portioned off of just like a terrible desecrated city that was, torn apart by the kaiju. And they're just gonna release those kaiju we mentioned a little earlier into it. And it's kind of a point-based system, kind of not. Everyone has to do their best. And if you can't hack it, you're out. There's a shield system set up that the examiners can use if they feel like someone's gonna die. But if your shield goes up, you're out. You're done.
The 6 members that we just talked about all pass. That includes Kafka. He doesn't necessarily pass. He catches the vice captain's eye just enough to be brought on as a provisional cadet. And the rest of them pass with flying colors. Kikaru is all over the place. She's slaughtering the battlefield until something happens. Everything is done. Everything is defeated. She's standing there victorious, just kind of panting and catching up. And suddenly out of nowhere, blast just riddled through her. A powerful being has emerged onto this battlefield and has resurrected the dead kaiju and is basically taking Kikaru to school. At this point in time, Kafka does something bold.
He jumps in. He goes after her. He finds her. And he turns into the kaiju number 8 right in front of her. But he saves her life.
And when everyone else shows up on the scene, he's already transformed back. They believe that Kikaru has saved his life and saved everybody's life. And Kikaru, for the sake of protecting Kafka, decides that she will claim that she saved them.
She just goes along with it.
After the induction ceremony, they have a meeting together. Want to talk a little bit about the meeting with Kafka, Reno, and Kikaru?
I mean, it's pretty basic. They basically tell her kind of what happened and how Kafka got this kaiju in him and everything. And they bring her into the fold.
Yeah, so she goes from being his number 1 antagonist to being his second most trusted ally within a matter of an episode, really.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the transition is pretty seamless, too, when you learn about some of why she's fighting. And ultimately, you learn about how big of a heart Kafka really does have and how much he really cares. So they all become part of it. They all become part of the group. But sure enough, a group of like mushroom-type kaiju start to hit an area, and this is go time. This is the first mission for all of the cadets, and they hit the battlefield strong. I mean, I guess we could say the battlefield hits Kafka strong.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are just showing off and showing what they can do. This group of newbies are all forming for the pros as if they are like captain levels, and they're doing an excellent job. Whether it's Kikaru or Iharu or Reno, just going down the list, they're all doing a great job. And Kafka's like, you know what? If I can't contribute this way, I'm going to contribute the way I know how.
So like in the middle of everything, he just starts kind of like cutting open one of the dead kaiju. And he realizes that, like, there's eggs inside of this thing. If they don't take care of that, the eggs are going to hatch and they're going to have even more problems. So he relays that back to Vice Captain Soshiro.
Yeah, and Soshiro passes the news on to everyone, so they start destroying the reproductive organs. They know now where the core is, because the way you take out a kaiju is by taking out its core that's somewhere behind all the flesh of it. And Kafka has basically turned the tide of the battle until that being that interrupted the exam shows up, and it's right in front of Iharu and Reno, isolating them alone. It's another numbered kaiju. It's kaiju number 9. We're not going to tell you too much about it, other than when he shows up, Kafka needs to show up.
Yeah, he really does. He's really just taking out Reno and Iharu. I mean, they've got nothing on him. And thankfully, though, Kafka shows up as Kaiju number 8 and just helps sway the battlefield. He is so close to taking out Kaiju number 9. But
Red shirts show up.
yeah.
They're putting their guns on Kafka as Kaiju number 8 because they don't know. They believe he's behind all this. So Kaiju number 9 can recover, get away. He sends some warning shots at the 2 red shirts trying to take them out, but Kafka saves them. So they're now confused. Kafka flees the scene also right into the waiting arms of
Vice Captain Soshiro.
Tell us about that battle a little.
I absolutely love that battle. Soshiro he's probably my second favorite character. I don't know why. He uses swords, and Kafka's doing everything he can to not attack back. He's just defending. And he doesn't try to talk, because if he talks, he's going to reveal that, like, they're going to kill him anyways. So, I mean, it's an intense battle. I really liked it. Soshiro is, like, holding his own against Kafka. Kafka's holding his own against Soshiro. It was a really, really good fight.
And one thing we have to say about Soshiro, he fights with the bladed weapons. He's an expert at small and mid-size.
Yeah.
And Kafka is a small-size kaiju. That's basically what it comes down to. Mina, the captain, she fights with a bazooka, basically,
Yeah,
a cannon, and
that's crazy.
she's the expert against the large types, so they complement each other very well. As a matter of fact, you see her riddle through the other boss on the battlefield that isn't Kaiju number 9 and just really kind of show off, and Soshiro is kind of like, yeah, that's what you have to equalize if you're going to stand by her side, Kafka.
Yeah.
So
when eventually they have, like, a one-on-one chat about it.
yeah, so that rivalry starts to form a little. Kafka does get away from that. They take some time to recover because Reno and Iharu really get it bad.
Yeah.
But everyone has a celebration together when they're finally out of the hospital. And that night is just wonderful because it's a great bonding experience for the whole new division and Division 3 as a whole. And then on that night, Kaiju strike the Division 3 base with Kaiju number 10 and a bunch of Wyvern-type Kaiju. And really, it's just, their goal is to destroy the 3rd Division completely, and Mina's away. So tell us a little bit about how the Vice Captain does against Kaiju number 10.
I mean, it's a great fight. So Kaiju number 10 can also talk. It's not, like, perfect, but he's pretty much saying that he wants a fight.
Rivals!
Yes!
Rivals!
And that's all he wants. He wants a fight. He wants to beat Soshiro, but he wants Soshiro to, like, do well. And he's not holding back. And neither is Soshiro, obviously. But eventually it gets to the point where he, like, goes Super Saiyan. Not Soshiro, unfortunately. Kaiju number 10, he just grows to this immense size, and it's suddenly not something Soshiro can deal with because he's not made for that kind of combat.
But by that time, Mina is back on the base, and she's able to clean up. And another thing, Kikaru gets a major upgrade. She now has a captain-level weapon. They
It's
made
great.
a battle axe for her, and she's just cleaving
so
through
great.
these beings on the battlefield. It's just kind of ridiculous. Meanwhile, she's running a 2-man squad with Reno, and other 2-man squads are forming. You're seeing the best of this cadet class work together. But ultimately, all the remaining Wyvern, after Kaiju number 10 is defeated, go into, like, this giant bomb that would hit to the equivalent of a nuke, and they're about to take out Division 3 and everything around it. At this point in time, Kafka knows he's dead either way if they decide to kill him for being a kaiju, but he at least can save everyone else.
Yeah.
He transforms in front of everyone and blasts the bomb up into the atmosphere to the
Like,
point where
punches
there are no casualties whatsoever. Kafka saves them all. And unfortunately, when he transforms back, Mina has to bring him into custody.
Yeah.
And that's all we're going to say about that. We will let you know that the decision from higher up is resolved before the end of the season, and that Division 3 100% still considers Kafka one of them. And Mina more or less acknowledged that Kafka can stand by her side. And they're all just hoping against hope, that maybe there's some mercy from the higher-ups dealing with Kafka. So tell us your opinion overall on Kaiju number 8.
Oh my gosh, I loved it. If it didn't break my top 5, it definitely broke my top 10. It left me wanting more in a good way, though. There's some anime that, like, you finish the season, you're like, oh, I want more. This one, I want to know more about the story. I want to know more about each character. It was so well put together. The comedy with the gore was great somehow. And everything. I loved it all.
Yeah, no, this is one of those ones where I might actually consider reading the manga to catch up to where it is at currently.
Honestly.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well put together. This is in strong contention for my top 5 of season 2. I will definitely let you know that. And honestly, if it didn't just have 12 episodes, it might already be cracking my top 10.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to judge something off of 12 episodes.
That's fair.
Once again, we went over what the world of Kaiju number 8 looks like. Then we met Kafka Reno and learned about the background story in the waste disposal. And then afterwards, we saw them take the exam together with characters like Hikaru and meet Captain Mina. And finally, we went over some of the battles that really drove the plot home at the end of the season. So if you like what you heard today, make sure to listen to us on Apple and Spotify. All of our podcasts are there. All of the J-Mill for Real podcasts are on there. Check us out on social media and interact with us there. It is linked in the show notes. Until next time, this has been Exploring Anime with Friends, a J-Mill for Real podcast. Let's explore together.